Hi, we are here about to shoot our film. Matt and I began working together in January to collaborate on a project together. At first, we knew we wanted to do something with projection design and dance put together, but we weren't sure exactly what that would look like. We started sharing some inspiration ideas back and forth and decided on using Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper, a short story about a woman who is suffering from postpartum depression, who is diagnosed with hysteria, and she begins to unravel and see images in the wallpaper, and she eventually becomes the woman she is seeing in the wallpaper.
Well, I guess really we just need to figure out what our next steps are, and the wall we've moved now to height. So
Mhm.
I have that in the studio. Some of the wallpaper came off in transit. I have new wallpaper that came in, so we're gonna just
Cool.
put
And
that
kind of
on
work. I think for me, if now that it's over there, if you when you find some time to get it set up and kind of place it in the space, give me some photos of it in the space just to kind of see how put it where you're thinking it's going to go, and just kind of show me what it's going to look like in the space. I know you mentioned there being a black curtain that goes behind it as well, and that'll give me some good idea of the contrast and everything to work with. And ideally, we get some straight on shots as well.
posted some photos of like 10 poses. I don't know if you saw that
Awesome. I'll take a
in
look. I don't think I.
July. But basically, out of one of the books that I was using, I picked out, like, it had all of these photographs of like women who had been diagnosed with hysteria, and they had been like forced to pose but for these photos by their doctors.
Oh wow.
um yeah, it's kind of crazy, but tons and tons of photos. And so I kind of created 10 photos inspired by the one, or 10 poses inspired by the photos in this book.
Awesome.
And then all of my movement is going to kind of be built off of these poses.
Awesome.
And so I was thinking the projection of like the woman's silhouette or image, we could kind of use some of these poses to kind of tie things in.
I like that a lot. I'm looking through them right now, and yeah, we could definitely pull basically an outline and make a shadow essentially graphically out of some of these poses. And so maybe it's mimicking, as you do one, it like stays where you were, and it you know what I mean? Like if you're integrating the poses into the choreography, maybe it's sort of like yeah, the best way I can think about it is like when you see movies where there's like a nuclear explosion, and then like the person's shadow is like projected on a wall behind them, and it stays there because of the sheer like velocity of the heat and everything. So the person's gone, but their shadow's still there. Is kind of the weird
Ooh.
event that happens during those types of catastrophic, like high heat, high explosion types of events, bombs going off, that kind of thing. So essentially, the person disappears, but you see a silhouette or their shadow on the wall. So I'm kind of seeing the way that maybe those poses can interact with you, the shadow, and the wall as well. So maybe they stay for a little bit as you're moving around, kind of mimicking throughout the space.
Yeah, I like that.
Cool.
I mean, I can continue working off of those poses to keep building the choreography, but I definitely want to make sure that we're kind of playing back and forth so that I can really make sure that the choreography is inspired by the projection as well, and not just like building the projection around
Yeah.
the choreography the whole time.
Yeah, and I mean, it should be a give and take, like you're saying. I mean, one should work with the other, and vice versa, because we want it to look like it's connected. Especially for this one, it's not something that we're just playing something in support of. It's connected to your movement, and so it'll be important, as well, when you're recording, like if you're like recording examples of pieces of the choreography, or even larger stretches of it, to have a almost a solid point of filming each time,
Okay.
because what that will provide me is some depth and idea of where you are in relation to the wall. And
Okay.
so, when the projections are being built, it'll kind of give me an idea of where to place specific objects, shadows, the type of thing that we're playing with. Um, so just keep that in mind as you're kind of working through it, and putting some stuff up for me to look at. It doesn't have to be perfect or like even measured out every single time, but just like, I know I'm X number of feet away from the wall with my camera right now. I'm going to stay that for the next one. And so just some consistency with filming would be helpful.
And then I guess, like, how high, I mean, there's plenty of room in there. So how high were you thinking for the projector to be? Like, should I put just like a ladder that is available and see how high that is and go from there? Or
Um, well, we need to figure out the projector, of course. And so, I know we talked about a couple of different options, and oh yeah, Bethany said there's that one at Monig that we talked about, that short throw, which would be helpful. And Haley or Sarah might be able to assist you, like in borrowing that. Um, so that's an option. But we need to get a projector in the space and turn it on and kind of see what the throw looks like, because that will determine how far you are away from the wall and maybe how high we need to go. I'd say maybe if we go with height, if we're not going with kind of a straight on view, we have a couple different options. We can go straight on and not worry about it being on you. And for this purpose, we're recording from probably where the projector is emanating from, as well. We're not really worrying about a full audience, from different perspectives. And so essentially you could have the projector and your camera right on top of each other to get the perfect perspective. So we could do it maybe about your head height, or a little above if we wanted to have some sort of down throw. The only way like having it up high works is if it's up pretty high, because otherwise you're still going to get, my concern with it being too high is that when you're away from the wall, you're going to get a sharp line across your face. Because even when the projection isn't displaying something, there will always be light being displayed, because there's no true black turn off for the projector while it's on. It's going to be pushing out light. And so if it's up too high, we run the risk of, as you're moving away from the wall, getting like a sharp angle that isn't necessarily part of the design, projected on you. And so I would almost say we might be better off doing it more straight on, maybe chest or head height, rather than being up high and angling down from a ladder, because we could avoid some of those scenarios essentially. And I think, like you said, once we start, maybe we start with a section of choreography and a selection of music, and that'll kind of give me some direction on some of the interactivity and some of the visuals that maybe we want to utilize, and then maybe that inspires a little bit more of the movement, and we kind of build from there. Like you were saying, going back and forth and working from each other would be helpful.
sounds good.
Yeah, and so we can trace the photo in a program like Illustrator or Photoshop to get a pretty exact silhouette essentially of what we're wanting to do, and then manipulate it in such a way that gives it more of a blurred edge shadow effect.
Cool.
We talked a little bit about adding some movement to it, but we have a couple different ways that we can do it. It can either be a moving piece along with you, which may require like actual video recording, just so we're not doing like full on animation of like, of a stick figure essentially. and building around that, which can be pretty time consuming, and it may not be the same effect either. So, if we're wanting some movement, there might be some areas where we need to actually have a recording of you against a high contrast background, and then we can take that and manipulate that in Premiere or After Effects, most likely Premiere, to get more of a stark contrast and again blur the edges and make it a shadow. Or we go with that type of idea we were talking about earlier, where maybe they're just kind of appearing and moving along with you. They're not necessarily like a person moving around in the background. It's just kind of remnants of your movement, which might be a cool way to do it, to shape those silhouettes and shadows around those poses that you're kind of integrating into the choreography.
Yeah, well, and we could even, for some parts of it, we obviously will have pre-recorded the videos and made that. Like, we could even have like her like doing the like crawling or creeping before like my character ever does that. Or, it could be moments where she's leading the movement.
Yeah.
And then moments where I am, or the image or the pose or whatever it is,
And I feel like at some point you have to like combine the two. Like maybe that's the culmination of everything is like you're walking into the shadow or you walk against the wall. And then since you're, the costume you're wearing, is costume the appropriate word?
Yeah.
I'm coming from the theater background, so I just want to make sure. Costume you're wearing, we could just, hammer in.
Yeah, like I find my place against the wall, everything lines up.
Yeah.
And then they kind of become the same person.
Yeah, and then that really plays with the concept of utilizing the projections as part of the performance and builds into the idea of purposeful overlay on you as well, which I think could be helpful.
That could be the start of that last
Yeah.
piece of music, that like music box one.
Yeah, I think for some of those pieces, we'll definitely have to, if there's movement involved in the sense of like of choreographed movement, it'll have to be a video that we record and then manipulate. And if there are instances where, like we talked about the explosion concept where the shadow remains, that can be a digital outline that I can pull from a photograph and build that in as well. And we can, make the two seem similar so that people know that they're the same person or shadow, essentially.
Yeah.
I've been going through trying to cut out the poses at first, using Photoshop to pull out the high contrast, which is basically what we talked about. And it's not too hard. It's just a matter of figuring out the right balance between the dark and the light to get the best outline as possible. One thing I did notice that I wanted to ask you was there are some hand motions that I don't think are going to show up as well. And they're more the ones that are tight on your body.
Yeah.
So
that's okay. Like if we end up not using those specific poses, I think that's okay.
And then the same thing with the videos as well, that we took against the high contrast background in the dark outfit. I think we'll lose some of those hand motions, and it's just a matter of kind of finding the balance between that and what you're wanting to do.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I think it'll still, in my mind, it will still read if I'm doing the same phrase in person at the same time.
Okay.
I think that will still get the point across. And then the like creeping one, that is more just for the projection. And then the one where I'm like, I don't know, like trying to come out of the paper or something.
Yeah. One of the things I'm working on right now is pulling some textures and other things to go along with the shadows, just so that there's not a constant figure, because we don't want it to just be the main focus of everything, but that there are some textures that there may be some moments that we focus on you in the foreground, and then the shadow comes in and out. But that's kind of what I'm struggling with right now, is finding a way to make it not about the figure in the background, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think like, especially since at the end, like when we start that third song and the two figures kind of lay on top of each other,
Yeah.
or layer on top of each other, and then the figure in the wall kind of disappears. I think that, I think I'm not too worried about the woman being a distraction in the wall.
Okay.
I think it'll be okay.
The kind of thought I had was sort of like an amalgamation of different like wallpaper patterns, if that makes sense. Like the yellow is a constant, but maybe the pattern changes and how that kind of moves around and morphs. So like, old damask or old like flower patterns and things that kind of morph in and out along with it. We can go that direction, or we can find kind of a solid piece if you want that can kind of have some motion to it as well, depending on kind of what you're thinking.
I'm sorry, Winnie is being so loud. I am open either way. Like I could picture either of those working really well. So, whatever kind of works better for you on your end. And
well, let me think on that a little bit, because that's one thing maybe I haven't thought through as well, is how the pattern like integrates with everything else. And so maybe one is the right choice, and then finding ways to morph that a little bit, with it as well. Do you have your choreography filmed for the entire segment of music?
No, but I can do that.
Would you mind? Because that would, like, I can use that along with the timestamp of the music to make sure that some of the spacing is right when we're talking about layout on the wall.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I can get that to you before the weekend.
And if it's possible to do it in front of the unit, that would be great.
Yes.
So I have that for reference too.
Okay, sounds good.
Were you able to put new wallpaper on?
Yes, the wall is all complete and finished now. So fixed those strips that had gotten messed up in transportation, and it looks just like it did before. So
could you send me a couple of pictures of it in the space with the new wallpaper too?
Yes.
Perfect. Again, just trying to get some like spatial relationship on some of the stuff.
Yeah, so I'm gonna work on getting new pics of the wall sent to you now that the wallpaper is all back on and fixed.
Yeah.
And I will film the full segment of choreography in front of the wall in the space.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna work on getting the projection finished, and we'll try and put it all together.
Yeah, and I think once I can see the full choreography, and then, like I said, I'm building these out in segments, and we can kind of piece them together. But that'll maybe give me some idea of, where parts should be placed on the wall, and so I can kind of map that out. And so what I'm doing is I've traced basically the outline of the wall, and I'm using that as a screen, so to speak, and I'm kind of fitting everything into that. And so that'll give me a good idea of where you are at given points as well.
Neat. Sounds good to me.
Awesome.
Hi, we are here about to shoot our film.
The image of the projection to the wall unit and kind of keystoning the image to make sure that it matches up as best as possible. And we're getting pretty close.
All right, well, we just finished doing 2 runs and filming it from different angles. So how do you feel about everything? Do you feel like you saw all the moments that you were wanting to see?
Yeah, I think we made some adjustments from the first film, and it helped us figure out exactly what we were trying to get from the projections and how it was working with everything. And this new angle on the projector and working on some of the timing, I think we really kind of hit all the moments we were looking to do. So, and we're able to kind of see what we were wanting to see from both the choreography and production side of things.
I agree. I feel like the second time we decided to move the projector a little bit closer, and so that took a little bit of adjusting on everything. But it kind of made the image of the woman in the wallpaper a little bit clearer and more at the right angle that you had originally planned. And it just meant that, like, as I was dancing, I just tried to stay a little bit closer to the wall that time. So we both just made some adjustments, and I think that
you
worked out pretty well.
close to the wall too really just kind of supports the concept as well. And so
Yeah.
that was really cool to see and see that adjustment take place. And so I think it worked really well.
Yeah, I agree. So,
Awesome.
yay, thank you, thank you.
Of course, it was a lot of fun.
Hope you guys enjoy.